We in the house, it's on once again. Blowing money, got these chickens gone with the wind.
Yo, what's up? My name is Andrew with Better Recording Studio. Listen, in this video, I'm breaking down the 5 essential pieces of gear that you need to produce high quality, radio ready, iTunes ready, streaming platform ready music that you can give to the world, grow a fan base, go on tour, play and get money from your music, create income streams off of your music. If that's important to you, you can do that all from your home studio with these essential 5 pieces of gear, plus a bonus 4 pieces of gear that you don't need. The gear that I always see in home studio videos that are totally unnecessary. I'm going to show you why they aren't and why you should not spend money on that and what you should invest your money in. All right, let's get started with the computer. Number 1, you can go desktop. I prefer laptop just for the mobility of it. I can make music at the library, at the airport, in a hotel, in a bedroom, wherever. So with a laptop, I'm running a Lenovo ThinkPad T440p. The brand specifically doesn't quite matter to me. You can go with Vaio, you can go with Toshiba, Dell. There's certain specs though that I believe have treated me well as far as when I'm getting computers. Number 1, a minimum of 8 gigs of RAM. So when you're on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or OfferUp or eBay, type in these specs. Number 1, 8 gigs of RAM. Anything less, you're gonna run into a lot of performance issues. You're gonna be in the middle of recording a vocal and it's gonna slow down, it's gonna stop. You're gonna start playing something back and it's gonna sound distorted and choppy because the computer can't hang with the amount of stress that you're putting on it. So go with 8 gigs or better. Number 2, make sure you have a minimum of 500 gigabytes of internal memory. If you can get a computer with a terabyte. The third spec of a computer that helps a lot is the processor. Go with an i5 or better. If you can do i7, you're good. Anything less than i5, again, you're gonna run into performance issues. Another spec of a computer that you need to take into account is the amount of USB ports. Now, right now, I got 3 things plugging in my USB ports. Number 1, the audio interface, which we'll get to, is USB. The keyboard that I'm using, which we'll get to, is USB. With Pro Tools, you have to use an iLock, which holds your licenses to be able to open the software. That's USB. Now, when I'm really doing a session, I'm gonna have my hard drive plugged in so that I can pull files off, use my drum kits, use different things that I put on a different separate hard drive. That's 4 ports. If you wanna use anything else, you need 5. So a minimum of 4 USB ports, gotta have it. Now, as far as computer size, 13-inch screen is what I'm running. It's fine, it's perfect. 15-inch, even better. 17 is beautiful. It's like watching an IMAX movie, but it's not necessary. And plus, a lot of backpacks can't hold a 17-inch screen. So 13-inch is fine. All right, next on the list, number 2, is your audio interface. This is the piece of gear that you're gonna route your inputs and your outputs through. Inputs means your mic. Outputs means your speakers or your headphones or anything else you got the audio going out of. The audio interface converts this acoustic energy, my voice going into the mic, into the audio interface, converts it into ones and zeros. That's the language that the computer listens and reads and understands. And then you manipulate it in your Pro Tools or your Ableton or FL Studio, and then that software kicks it back out to the audio interface through your USB port, or sometimes it's FireWire USB port. USB is the most common. Your audio interface gets it back from those ones and zeros and turns it back into acoustic energy through your speakers or your headphones. This process is very important. You want a solid audio interface. I'm running an Inbox, but I've also used Alesis. You can use Focusrite, Tascam, you name it. Your audio interface also needs to have phantom power, and we'll get to why, but phantom power is essential for a condenser mic, which is what I'm using. A very sensitive mic, it needs phantom power, so make sure it has that. Number 3, we're talking about mics. Now, there are a few kind of mics that you could choose from. There's condenser, dynamic, ribbon. Dynamic mics and condenser mics are your most common mics that you'll see. The mic that I would recommend is the Audio-Technica AT2020. I've had this mic right here for about 8 years now. It's a very dynamic mic, but it's not a dynamic mic. It's a condenser, which means basically the thing that actually records your voice, the diaphragm, needs an electric charge, which is the 48 volts that you need in your audio, your interface. That charges the diaphragm, which makes it more sensitive. These mics are more sensitive. That's why they're kind of used more for vocals, to capture the little intricate details in everyone's voice. But it's not necessary. You can get a dynamic mic that's just as good. The Shure SM57 is probably the most common mic. So you can go with the AT2020 for your condenser or SM57 for your dynamic. It's up to you. You're gonna need a pop filter, which will stop your plosives or your P's and B's and T's. These explosions of air will distort your vocal. You need a pop filter or a popper stopper. You're gonna need an XLR cable, which connects the mic to the interface. You can use a shock absorber or a shock mount, which is not necessary all the time, but just in case you're in a rumbly area, that will absorb shock before it reaches the mic and gets into your vocal recording. You're going to need a mic stand. Now, all of these accessories, I would recommend you find for as cheap as possible when you're starting out. You don't need to go overboard on a pop filter. You don't need to go overboard on XLR cables. Just get the cheapest used gear you can and then upgrade. That's actually my philosophy for all gear. Just start with what you can start with and then upgrade. Do your best with what you have. Next on the list is your speakers and/or headphones. I say that because when I started, I didn't have speakers. I was using headphones. Even with this audio interface, I was using earbuds. You just start with what you have and you'll learn your gear and you'll get better over time. But if you have the budget or if you're just filling out what you want to invest in, I would get a pair of speakers just so you can hear in an open environment what you're doing, your beats, your music, your vocals, whatever you're recording, you're mixing. So get a pair of speakers and I wouldn't go overboard. Start cheap. I started with the M Audio AV, I can't remember the number. And plus they're discontinued. I think they were AV40s. But just start with the cheapest pair that you can get. Go with $100 pair. And remember, this is just so you can hear in an environment, in acoustically, what you're doing. When you're only listening on earphones, headphones, or earbuds, it almost distorts the space that your music has in it. It's hard to explain, but if you can get a pair of speakers, get a pair of speakers, and not a pair of computer speakers. I mean, studio monitors. Even if they're cheap, they're gonna be better than computer speakers. For headphones, Sony makes great headphones. Just get a pair, get what you can, and then upgrade. You might need this little piece of gear too, 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch connector, because most headphones are gonna be 1/8 inch, but most interfaces are going to be 1/4 inch. Just go buy one of these for like $5 from Guitar Center or find it used on eBay. All right, the fifth and final piece of gear that you should consider for your home studio is your keyboard. M Audio. It's a basic keyboard, man. Just get a keyboard. If you're looking to make beats, to take your production into your own hands instead of using YouTube beats and beats that you found on Instagram. If you want to make your own beats, you need a keyboard. I'm not into clicking on notes in the computer and dragging and figuring out where the next one should go. And I'm not into that. I play chords and progressions on a keyboard. I got this keyboard off a guy from Craigslist, $25. It's USB. It goes straight into my computer. I've made beats with my laptop and my computer, working grave shift at a security site. In this small 25 key keyboard, it has 2 octaves on it, fits perfectly into my backpack. It'll fit perfectly on a desk. I am looking to upgrade to get a 55 key or an 88 key if I can find it affordably, because I'm trying to step my production game up and be able to be 2 hands on the keyboard. But just for you to get started, $25 keyboard, USB. This one specifically has what's called mod wheels and your pitch bend in case you're making a beat and you got an 808 and you want it to pitch bend up or pitch bend down or modulate it. make sure your keyboard, whatever one you get, has those. There's keyboards with the MPC pads on it if you want to do your drums like that. I'm fine doing drums on keys. I've always been fine doing that. Okay, those were your 5 essentials. Those will get you a long way. And if you just keep upgrading and getting something that's better for your operation, you're going to have solid audio. Let's get into the unnecessary waste of money, starting with MacBook Pros. Nothing against Apple products. I've had a MacBook Pro, and my daughter spilled a cup of water on it, and I haven't looked back since. But they're just overpriced. You know, they have to price that stuff for their fancy marketing and for their fancy buildings. They have to mark up the price just to maintain their brand. You don't want to be caught up in that. There's nothing better with Apple than with Windows. Get yourself a Toshiba, get yourself a Lenovo, get yourself a Sony Vaio, get yourself Dell. You know, these laptops are just as good as long as you uphold those specs that I recommend. Another overrated thing that I see, not necessarily gear, is FL Studio. This software is the most common software right now, but it's not any better than Pro Tools or Reason or Logic or Ableton. FL Studio it's popular, I understand, but don't kill yourself trying to learn how to make beats on this specific software. I make beats on Pro Tools. That's so unpopular. A lot of people just think it's only for audio, it's only for mixing. No, I make my beats and then I record in the same session. I would promote that you learn how to make beats in Pro Tools. Pro Tools has a subscription plan right now where it's just $30 a month. I think FL Studio is like a flat price. It's either $900 or $200 or $300, and that's it. Pro Tools lets you pay in a subscription format. And I think Pro Tools has a free version right now. So just go with the industry standard software. If you're going to go with any software, all of your favorite artists, all of them are using Pro Tools. Their engineers are using Pro Tools. So why not learn how to use it yourself for your own music? The third most overrated thing I see in people's home studios that is a waste of money is sound absorbing foam. Why? Because in a professional recording studio, the acousticians who come out to a room, they study the room. They look at the measurements of that room, the dimensions. They figure out exactly how many square feet of that room, how much surface area of this room needs to be covered in absorptive padding to effectively handle the reflections and echoes that are going on in this room. If you're in your home studio, there's no point if you don't know how to do that and buying a bunch of foam, which gets expensive. You don't even know which kind to use and how much square footage to use. It's very precise like that. A lot of studios just put it everywhere. That's bad also because you're absorbing too much. See, when you're mixing, you want a natural sound. You want it to sound, you want a little bit of reverb going on, just a tiny bit. A natural sound. If you have it everywhere, your room is super dried out. There's no space in that room. You're going to be adding reverb to everything while you're mixing because you're not hearing it in your environment. That's not the way to go either. So, and then I see people with just a few diamonds here, a few diamonds on this wall, a few diamonds of absorptive padding here. It's like decoration. If you want to decorate your room with it, if that psychs you up and makes you feel like you're in a professional environment, fine. But don't fool yourself and spend a ton of money thinking that, oh yeah, this is getting my vocals right. This is going to make my room nice. No, I'm sorry. The fourth and final unnecessary piece of gear that I recommend you do not spend money on is a reflection filter. This piece of gear, it doesn't even make sense. Let me explain why. Now, if you're using a cardioid mic, which if you get the AT2020 is going to be cardioid. If you get 80% of the mics on the market, they're going to be cardioid, which means they only record from the front. The back side of the mic does not record anything. Why would I need a piece of gear behind my mic? Why would it need to be behind my mic when the back of the mic already rejects noise? This is a waste of money. And those things go for like $200, $300. And they look cool. There's metal and it has absorptive padding on the inside. It's a waste of money. And if you've already wasted money on it, I'm sorry, you should sell it. There's no need for there to be any sound absorption behind the mic. because if it's cardioid, it's already rejecting sound from the behind the mic. What's a better option is if you have something behind you. And in Pro Studios, they use things like that called gobos. They use these thick, foamy things that go behind you, and it stops reflections from bouncing off surfaces behind you and coming into your mic. That's what you really want to deal with. You want to deal with behind your mic, because sound, your voice, your drums, your guitar is going to be bouncing off surfaces. It's going to bounce behind you, and then it's going to go into your mic. You want to deal with what's behind you. And that's where I bring up the Better Recording Vocal Pod. This is a piece of gear that I made for inexpensively from hardware store, Lowe's equipment, things that you can just find inexpensively. It fits together simply. It's cheap. It's quick to set up. It can be broken down quickly. And what it does, it goes behind you, and it does the job of absorbing those reflections and those echoes and delays that occur in a home studio environment, wherever you're recording. If it's not a Pro Studio where they've done the acoustic work to make it dry and clean vocals, you're going to have delays. You're going to have reverb. It's just going to happen. Don't be afraid of it. But the Better Recording Vocal Pod is something that I put together that goes right behind you. Slide it up right behind you. It's going to cut out some of those reverbs, some of those delays, most of them. I've done before and after where I recorded a verse to a beat without it, and then I brought it in behind me. Night and day. It stops those reflections. When you're recording a quieter song or over a beat that doesn't have a lot of elements that drown out your vocals, you're going to hear those reflections if you're not using it. When you do use it, you can have a drier, cleaner vocal. This is it sounds more professional. If people can hear the sound of your room in your vocal when you're doing a slow song, if you're a singer and you're doing a ballad and you can hear the whole room in the vocal, they're going to be turned off by that because it's unprofessional. With the Better Recording Studio Vocal Pod, you're doing something. If you're interested in one, the link will be down below. All right, so that's been the 5 pieces of gear, the essentials that you need for your home studio, plus 4 things that you don't need to waste money on. Plus, I've introduced you to the Better Recording Vocal Pod. Grab one of those when you want clean vocals. Now, I have another video where I discuss how to set up your room in a specific way to get quality vocals, capture quality vocals. I assume I'm speaking to a lot of rappers, a lot of singers, people who are just recording themselves. This video will show you how to get quality vocals in your environment. I show you some of the science. I show you some of the home studio workarounds that I figured out over the years. If you want that video, just requires an email. We'll send it right to your email down below. Just put your name, your email. Might have some other questions for you. Just fill it out, and that video will be in your inbox instantly. Check out that video next. All right, I'll holler at you.